Workplaces today are more diverse than ever. People from different cultures, countries, and backgrounds come together to solve problems and get things done. And while this diversity is a very huge strength on its own, it can also bring challenges along with it, especially on how we interact with each other. I want you to envisage this. Your first day at work, you walking into a room where everyone's eyes fall on you, but not because you were qualified for the job, not for your skills, but for how you look. It could be your hair, it could be your skin tone, it could be your height, or it could be your body traits. It might start as a compliment, but inside it cuts so deep. Many people who do this kind of thing assume that it is a harmless compliment. And so they do it. But what they don't know is how much, the person who happens to be the receiver suffer for their actions. This is what we call appearance bullying. And it's something many of us are going through at workplaces without realizing it. Or probably we know it, but we decide to keep a deaf ear and blind eye to it. Most of the reasons, why this happens is that some group of people have been stereotyped to be aggressive, to be badly behaved. And so when this kind of situation crops up at work, people kind of give a deaf ear to it or try to ignore it. But the problem is that they internalize it, and it causes them more problem, than good. And that is why we decided to talk about it today. So today we are diving into this topic on this Diaspora Seats podcast series. What appearance bullying really is, why it matters for our mental health, our inclusion in the society, our productivity at workplaces, and what we can do to change this narrative. So, welcome back to the Diaspora Seat, a place where we talk about struggles, we talk about health, we talk about identity, and we talk about lifestyle of people living in the diaspora. If you are joining me for the first time on this podcast series, thank you for coming by. I'm really so grateful. And make sure you subscribe. If this video resonates with you, give me a thumb up on it and share it with people who might be interested in it. And let's get the conversation going. Back to our topic today, defining appearance bullying. The very first time I saw, this word appearance bullying, it really caught me. I read through it and I realized that this is what most of us are facing every day at work. Like I said before, some people decide to give their ear to it or keep a blind eye to it. But the most important thing is that while we were keeping a blind eye to it and, not trying to, talk about it because of how sensitive it could be, it really hurts us, it cuts so deep. Because the person who is doing it, might think that this is a harmless, thing that he or she is doing, but doesn't know how it hurts. And we kind of like internalize these things at the end of the day, and we are the people, suffering it. It can lead to anxiety. It can lead to, so many other health issues, which we are also going to talk about on today's video. But first of all, let's define what appearance bullying, really is. So, like I said, I went through a whole lot of papers, on it. A whole lot of research, on this topic, and I created a 6 episode. So today's episode is going to focus on defining appearance bullying. So let's be clear. What is appearance bullying? Appearance bullying in the workplace, refers to a repeated, unreasonable, and inappropriate behavior targeting someone's physical looks, weight, height, skin color, hair, disfigurement, or other visible traits. It can humiliate, it can exclude or degrade someone, and it doesn't just hurt feelings. Emphasis on it doesn't just hurt feelings. It actually threatens your mental well-being and career progress. And here's the tricky part, because the thing is, most of these people, like I said before, think that this is a harmless compliment because it comes in different forms, It doesn't just come as an obvious insult. Sometimes it's hidden in jokes or disguised as feedback, or probably sometimes comes as a compliment. So back then in Barcelona, I was working in this NGO, a very big organization. I loved working, there because of the experience I had. I was working as an office manager, at the same time, a translator. Now, I have always, talked about Barcelona as a place I love so much because I spent most of my life there. If you watch the first episode of my life, moving to Germany, you must have heard me talked about how I enjoyed working in Barcelona. So I was working in this NGO, very lovely place, and it's a place anybody would want to work in. So, 3 years into my job, my boss called me and my boss was telling me this: Micheline, you are beautiful, you are outspoken, and you are very intelligent. But above all, you are not too black. Now, guys, I didn't know whether to say thank you or to say go to hell, because the thing is that I was confused of myself. How could somebody water down my productivity? I mean, what I am bringing to the table into this organization just because of how I look, It was like somebody used a knife, and stabbed me on the chest. Like I said, I was frozen. I didn't know what to do, I just said, okay. I walked away. Of course, he is my boss. For him, it was a compliment, but for me, it wasn't. Now, I started processing this whole thing. I was so bad. I started feeling bad about myself, So does it mean that if I was black, then if I was too black, that means I wouldn't have the opportunity for that job? Or does it mean that because of my look, that was why I was employed? So what happened to my qualification? So I started even thinking less of myself personally. But while I was processing this, while I was thinking less of myself, something struck me. I remembered my experience before I got the job. Before I got that job, I was working as an English teacher. I mean, executive English teacher. Sometimes I teach kids, and that's in the evenings. And in the mornings, I was working as an executive English teacher with 9 companies. Not local companies, but multinational companies. Talk Deloitte, talk Fitch Rating, talk Rekit Benkiza, talk Procter and Gamble, talk Atrapalo. These are big multinational companies in Barcelona that I was working, for. And I was working as an executive English teacher. My job entails going to managing directors, or maybe marketing directors or finance directors. And then we are going to have a kind of English conversation class. These classes last between 1 hour, 30 minutes to 2 hours. And in my 7 years experience on this particular career as an English teacher, never had any of these executives complained to my academy that I wasn't doing well. They were all satisfied, with my job. My boss in the NGO, was one of them. He never complained throughout the time I do these English classes. He enjoyed every bit. In fact, he told me he looks forward to classes. Some of them, I usually have classes with some of them 2 times in a week. Like maybe it could be Tuesdays and Thursdays. There are people with Mondays and Wednesdays. There are people with Fridays. There are people with Saturday mornings. This was what I was doing before I got that job in the NGO. And I lasted in that job for 7 years. And now somebody is coming out of the blue and was telling me that I look, was comparing my looks with my productivity. Now, before I was even employed in that job, they did a thorough interview. This interview entails, they were looking for people with multi-language skills. So according to what they told me, they said they were not just looking for people with just English and Spanish, because you can find them easily in Barcelona, but they were looking for people with multi-language skills. And that's where I come in. At that time, I speak 4 European languages, and including English as my language, my first official language, because I come from Nigeria, making it 5 European languages because the UK was also under the EU as at then. Now, I speak Spanish and I write Spanish very well. I speak French and I write French very well because I graduated, with French in French linguistics. I speak Portuguese and I write Portuguese very well. I speak Catalan and I write Catalan very well. So what? Where is the comparison between my skills and my looks? So you see that these things, really hurt us so much. And many people don't understand it. Like I said, for him, it was a compliment. But for me, it wasn't a compliment because these things made me feel like, I am not needed. I was just employed because of the way I look. Now, there are also some other examples like you are too pretty to be in this role, you are too pretty to be doing this job, Many people can tell you things like this. Wow, you look so professional, and I didn't expect it. Excuse me, I am in a professional environment, so I should act professional, People can even make comparisons like she's pretty, so because she's pretty, she'll probably get the promotion. So that means if you don't look a certain way, you wouldn't get promotion, even when you were qualified for the job. So on the surface, this might sound like, very harmless, like I said, harmless compliments, why should it bother you? But they reduce someone's worth to their appearance. I mean, instead of their skills, instead of their contributions, to the organization, instead of, making them feel human, because everything is just about how they look. Like I said, because of how this topic, relates to me, I kind of had a deep dive, into research about the real world impact of this issue. Now, if you are feeling bad about this kind of situation, coming up at workplace, your feelings are validated because research said that employees who are perceived as less attractive are more likely to face rudeness, incivility, or cruelty from colleagues. This has real life consequences. And most of the real life consequences he talked about is 1, mental well-being suffers. Now, when you have this kind of situation at workplace, you are always feeling anxious. You are you are having so much anxiety. You are having self-doubt. In my own case, I was having self-doubt, about this whole thing. It increases stress, and can even lead to burnout. So you can imagine this kind of scenario where you come to work and your looks is an object of discussion. Another, real life consequences is that workplaces inclusion decreases. Of course, when people are always talking about your looks, your worth is only attached to your looks and not what you bring into the table. And that is why some people could feel excluded, or overlooked. Like I said before, somebody saying, because you are pretty, you likely would get, the promotion. Now, let's take, for example, somebody who doesn't look, pretty to societal standard. That means the person will be overlooked. That means the person's contribution, will be watered down because everything has to be, about the look. Another real life, situation, another real world impact of this kind of situation on people is that their career progress, kind of stalls. The reason being that they don't feel that they will get promotion, and in their own part, they feel demotivated. They're kind of okay, I would not be taken seriously. And because of how I look, these people are not gonna promote me. So what do? I just come here, do my work and go home. Even when the person suffers for it, even when the person is qualified, then this person is missing opportunity because of just how he or she looks. So why don't we talk about what this person brings to the table, which is the most important thing, Let me give you some few examples. Some people telling you about your hair, you come to work and the person say, is your hair real? rather than recognizing, your expertise, your skills. They are always focusing on talking about your hair. Let's take another example, like an employee passed over for a leadership role because they don't look the part. So because you are black, or probably you are not looking, you know, as pretty as what the societal standard, entails, that means you wouldn't get that leadership role. Many people are facing this situation. There are so many people who are really like, they have the certificate, they have the qualification, but because of how they look, they are overlooked at workplaces. These things are happening, in Germany right now. And many people are just like, feeling that this thing is nothing, because seriously, whether we like it or not, this is a big deal. You can see that each instance, that I gave in this episode, chips away at confidence. This increases burnout risk, and shift attention from productivity to someone defending his or herself. Why does it matter? Why do we have to pay so much attention to this? Why don't we allow these things, to just sweep under the carpet, and just let sleeping dog lie? I know so many people might be thinking about it like I'm saying it. But the thing is that it matters. And let me tell you why this should matter for all of us, for the individual, for the workplace, and also for the leaders who are in charge of the workplace. Now, let's start with the individual. Appearance bullying causes stress. This is one thing, it makes people to have anxiety at workplaces. Imagine when your hair or your body part, or probably you are overweight, or probably because of your skin color, you are always the center of discussion in every break, in every break table. Seriously, it becomes a very big problem because you feel you cannot start distancing yourself, and this could cause lots of stress. It could cause self-doubt because that person will start thinking that I am not doing, better, because everything is attached to how you look. And this could lead to burnout. Seriously, you don't want your comment to be something that will lead somebody to that extreme. I wrote a project, during my university, my first year, in burnout, but I was focusing on nursing. And seriously, while doing that research, I realized that this burnout is a real thing and it's not something I would even wish to an enemy. It's not a good thing. It can lead to so many things. And when you are to the extreme of burning out, there are so many health consequences that come with it. And that is why you wouldn't want somebody to go to that extreme, and let your comment not take somebody to that extreme. Let's look at the workplace. It lowers morale, like I said before, it creates a toxic environment because people get demotivated. Let's take, for example, your body parts, or probably your skin color, or probably your hair is always the center of discussion whenever you people are on break. It's really like depressing. It's not a place to be. That's why it creates that toxic environment and eventually drives good talents away, because you are focusing on that person's body and not what that person can bring to the table. Now, for the leaders, who are in charge of these organizations, if you overlook these things and say, yeah, it is just a harmless comment, it's just a harmless, whatever it is, you stand to lose competence. You stand to lose, valuable team members. Productivity will not be like, you will not have enough of what you are expecting. And that is why it's a very big problem. And that is why we should care. Here's the bottom line. A respectful workplace, is a productive workplace. When people are valued for their work and not judged for their looks, everyone benefits. So let's reflect on this kind of, thing, and look at ourselves first. If we are in that position, if we are at the receiving end, how would we feel when somebody has to make comments, about our body, about our skin tone, about our health? Let's take a moment to reflect. Our appearance is who we are. It is the face we show to the world. It is practically our identity. But it never should define our competence, our skills, or worth. In addition, you are not responsible for who you are. You are not responsible for being black. You are not responsible for being born from Africa. You are not responsible for being born in Europe. You just came out of this world and found yourself where you found yourself. There is nothing you can do about it. And that is why sometimes most of these people who do these things, are kind of like, do you even reflect on these things before you even talk about it? Do you even think that what you're doing is harmless, or you are just doing it because you are trying to work on your own inadequacies? Think about your experience. Now, I'm talking to people who usually do this kind of thing. Have you ever received a comment about your looks at work? Maybe something that sounded like a compliment, or maybe it didn't feel so kind to you. How did you feel? Did it make you feel seen? Or did it make you feel so bad that it reduced you to nothing more than your appearance? Let's flip it on the other side. Have you ever said something about someone else's appearance? Did it come from a place of encouragement, or could it have been that it was received differently than you intended? This is your reflection. Sometimes it is better to not say anything than saying something that will make somebody get to the extreme of burning out. I'm talking about this because many people are going through mental health issues. Many people kind of, feel withdrawn. People don't really want to talk about it. I've said it before, because some group of people have been stereotyped to be aggressive, to be badly behaved. So even when they are not badly behaved, even when they are not aggressive, people will say they are aggressive. And that is why so many people kind of internalize this thing, suffer it, and keep quiet and not say anything about it. And that is why it is very, important for us to talk about. Anyway, here is your challenge this week, because in every episode on this series, we are going to be having a challenge, and probably this is like a kind of practical, application of what I talked about on the episode that you can use in the workplace. Probably it would work for you, but these are kind of practical strategies that has worked for me. So this is what you can do. Just pay attention. Notice how often appearance come up in conversations around you, whether it's with colleagues or with clients. And then ask yourself, is this comment building respect, or is it reducing someone to how they look? Now, if you do hear a comment that feels like it crosses the boundary, try a gentle redirection. Shift the focus back to the person's skills, their work, or their character. Sometimes even a little reminder, maybe something like this. Yes, and did you see how well they handled that situation? Can change the tone completely. Because awareness is first step to change. And it starts with noticing. It starts with you. Thank you for joining me for episode 1 of Modern Looks, Building Respectful Workplaces. Today, I talked about appearance bullying, explored how it shows in compliments, jokes, and comparisons. And I also discussed why it matters for our mental health, our inclusion in the society, and our productivities at workplaces. Next episode, I will talk about the psychology behind appearance bullying, why people do it, what it says about the bully, and how unconscious bias plays a role. Remember, you are more than your looks. Your worth is in your work, your values, and your humanity. Thank you for coming by once again. Stay healthy, stay beautiful, and I hope to see you guys on the next episode. Ciao.